Few people have the courage to talk about this clearly. But let's get straight to the point. Sex is not just pleasure, nor just sin. It can be a tool for awakening or an invitation to unconsciousness. Most live trapped in a silent cycle of desire, guilt, and reproduction, thinking this is normal. It is not. And, as strange as it may seem, this topic that society hides can be one of the most direct keys to your spiritual evolution or your emotional ruin. Eckhart Tolle doesn't talk about sex like you're used to hearing. He shows how this very powerful impulse can be what disconnects you from peace, or takes you straight to the light. Yes, there is a path where you transform this energy into spiritual prosperity. And no, we're not talking about celibacy or religious rules. We are talking about conscience. In this video, you will understand why sex plays a crucial role in your relationship with the Creator of the universe, how your impulses reveal much more than you imagine, and what to do to avoid getting lost in this internal labyrinth. But I warn you, after hearing this, you will no longer look at your own sexual energy in the same way. Human beings, since the beginning, have been shaped by impulses that they do not always understand. Among them, sex occupies a special place, not only because of the intensity of pleasure, but because it carries a vital function in the specification of nature. The Creator of the universe, with all his wisdom, built an almost hypnotic magnetism into this act, precisely to guarantee the continuity of the species. Peace between beings often begins in carnal union, and this is not chance, it is structure. Nature was ingenious, linked to the pleasure of procreation like someone hiding a winning ticket inside a chocolate. Now, what few people realize is that this impulse can be a wild horse or a war horse. It depends on who holds the reins. When a person finds himself dominated by desire without presence, he loses the light of consciousness. It's like someone lighting a match in a dark room and running out without knowing if there's gasoline on the floor. Everything explodes. It's not that sex itself is the problem. It's the lack of awareness that turns what was supposed to be divine into compulsive. It's like using a chef's knife to open a can. The potential is there, but it's being misused. And look how curious. When someone starts to observe their impulses more carefully, like someone listening to an announcement in the middle of a crowd, something changes. Emotional prosperity begins to emerge, of course, even more vital energy. A practical example. Do an experiment for 7 days. Every time you feel a desire, stop, take a deep breath, observe. So watch. You don't need to resist or surrender, just be aware. You will notice how this begins to give you more control over yourself, more connection with inner peace. And since we are talking about mastery, let me tell you what happens when sex takes you to an unconscious state without you realizing it. It's incredible how something so pleasurable can, at the same time, save us from our own presence. Sexual desire, when it is not offered consciously, is like a whirlpool. It pulls you, spins you, involves you, and when you see it, you are no longer in charge. Many people confuse intensity with truth. Just because it's strong, I think it's real, but not always. The Creator of the universe gave us the free will to guide these forces, and not to be dragged by them. True light is lost when the mind is hijacked by images, fantasies, and expectations. Have you ever noticed how some people are literally out of their minds because of a crush or a promising date? It's as if the brain turns off its critical sense and activates automatic mode. In this state, an inner peace disappears. What was supposed to be connection turns into anxiety, attachment, even obsession. It is at this point that sexuality stops being an expression of love and becomes an emotional trap. And the most dangerous thing, the person doesn't even realize it. Unconsciousness disguises itself as pleasure immediately, but it takes a heavy toll later on, emotionally, spiritually, even financially, you know? A real example. How many people have gotten involved with someone just out of desire and then become trapped in toxic relationships, marked by jealousy, blackmail, and games? When the mind is blinded by desire, it doesn't see the signs of the Creator of the universe trying to warn, hey, this isn't prosperity, it's prison. The way out is to start really observing what we feel. It's not stopping feeling, it's feeling with awareness. And speaking of consciousness, there is an ancient, sacred path that transforms this energy in a way that few know about. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Tantra is not about fancy positions or exotic rituals, as many people think. It is, in fact, a profound invitation to presence. When someone approaches another with full attention, noticing every touch, every breath, the act stops being just physical, it becomes spiritual. Light enters the room together. The person begins to feel the creator of the universe there, present, witnessing that union. It's different. It's like swapping instant coffee for freshly ground coffee, prepared with care. The experience changes, and everything becomes more sacred, more true. In Tantra, the sexual impulse is not denied, but welcomed. But with one important detail: it is observed, not automatically followed. Imagine a couple who, before touching, look into each other's eyes for a few minutes, in silence. Sounds simple, but this changes everything. Creates connection. Bring peace. And in this space of presence, anxiety goes away. There is no rush. There is no need to prove anything. Pleasure comes, yes, but it is a consequence, not the final goal. This is emotional, energetic, spiritual prosperity. That's when pleasure becomes a bridge, not a prison. If a person wants to start walking this path, they don't need to go to the Himalayas or become a monk. Start at home, with small presence practices. It can be a conscious bath, a leisurely touch, a long hug. You can read books like The Path of Love, by Osho, or Tantra, The Art of Ecstasy, by Margot Anand. The important thing is to bring awareness to the body. When sex becomes meditation, it heals. It expands. It reconnects. And perhaps that is what is missing in so many people's lives. A sexuality that generates light, not darkness. But don't worry, because there is a key that transforms even the simplest touch into something transcendental. Consciousness is what separates the human from the animal, the presence of instinct, peace from chaos. When someone touches another person with full attention, with a calm heart and a present mind, that touch carries healing. It is as if the creator of the universe manifested himself in the palm of his hand, transforming a simple gesture into a portal of light. A conscious kiss has more power than 1,000 hasty touches. Synchronized breathing can be more intimidating than hours of conversation. That's where the magic happens, not magic of illusion, but magic of presence. The truth is that when conscience comes in, compulsion comes out. What was once an uncontrollable desire now becomes an energy available to be used wisely. This is prosperity at its most subtle level, knowing when to act and when to just observe. Have you ever seen how some people carry a silent magnetism? They didn't give in to the impulse, but they didn't repress it either. They breathe. They feel. And most importantly, they know that desire is only a part of the whole, not the whole itself. When this is understood, life changes. A simple practice. The next time the urge arises, pause. Feel the body. Observe a mind. Don't run away. Not loot. Just be there. This is consciousness. This is transformation. And this practice is not just for sexuality, it is for everything. A conversation, a decision, a silence. The creator of the universe is in all of this, waiting for your watchful eye. And perhaps it is this attention that is missing in our relationships, in our daily lives, in our spirituality. What if I told you that even our most common vices hide secrets that conscience can reveal? Desire is desire, whether for sex, sugar, social media, or that cheese bread that calls you from the bakery. Eckhart is right. The basis is the same. The impulse comes, screams, demands, and if awareness is not there, it takes the wheel. The person thinks they are in control, but they are just being led. The creator of the universe gave us this vital energy not to be wasted, but to be polished. When someone begins to observe their habits with presence, they realize that desire is just a wave, and that they can, indeed, surf without drowning. Take a practical example, that sudden urge to open the fridge at night. Is it hunger or is it escape? Just like the sexual drive, this desire to eat can be a cover for anxiety, loneliness, or boredom. But when observed closely, it begins to lose strength. Consciousness brings light. And the light shows what is behind addiction, a lack of presence, of connection, of inner peace. When a person learns to look at this with kindness and not with guilt, an invisible prosperity is born, one that comes from the inside out. And the most curious thing is that the more awareness a person applies to these impulses, the more control they gain. This doesn't mean that she will become a monk who doesn't feel like anything, far from it. But it means she will no longer be a hostage. A good exercise is to keep an impulse diary. Write down when they arise, what triggered them, how you reacted. This trains your eyes. And a trained eye sees where before there were only reactions. But would repressing these impulses be easier? Is it enough to say no and that's it? Suppressing a desire is not the same as overcoming it. Many people think that holding back the impulse is a sign of strength, when in fact it could just be accumulated tension. It's like squeezing a spring with all your might. Eventually it will bounce more intensely. Eckhart speaks of this clearly. Suppression creates shadows. The Creator of the universe did not make us to live in internal war, but to transmute energy with light and consciousness. When we repress something, it grows in the dark, fueled by fear and shame. Peace is not born from denial, but from gentle observation. Let's take a real example. Someone decides they are going to stop feeling desire. You close your body, block your mind, fill yourself with guilt when something piques your interest. Is this healthy? Of course. The result is usually the opposite: outbursts of anger, hidden guilt, intense relapses. The key is to be honest with yourself. Did you feel it? Observe, recognize, breathe, and then you choose what to do with it, consciously. This is spiritual maturity. It's looking at your own fire without fear of burning. It's letting energy flow wisely, and not locking it in an emotional safe. A powerful practice. Meditation focusing on bodily sensations. Do you feel the impulse? Sit in silence, take a deep breath, and just feel your body, without judgment. It is not to feed, nor to repress. It is to let the energy exist and transform. This generates an internal freedom that few know about. That's where true spiritual prosperity begins. When you know you can feel everything, but you don't need to act driven by anything. And if you've made it this far, perhaps you're already feeling this change. But the question now is, what are you going to do with all this knowledge? Now that you know that sex can be both a bridge to consciousness and an invisible prison, the choice is in your hands. Are you going to continue living on autopilot, being guided by impulses that you don't even understand? Or will you start using this strength as fuel to awaken, grow, align with the Creator of the universe, and live in true prosperity? The truth is that few have the courage to take this plunge. But those who do are never the same. And tell me, how many times have you felt like you were losing yourself because of a desire? What would you do differently now that you know all this? What practice will you try today to transform this energy into light? Tell me here in the comments. I really want to know what this content awakened in you. If this made sense to you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because here we talk about topics that few people have the courage to touch on. And together, we go deeper into this journey of self-knowledge, presence, and inner peace.